So I have been spending more time messing around with ChatGPT, and I'm gonna be totally honest, I'm a bit freaked out. Now, of course, anytime someone says that they are freaked out about some new technology, they get called a Luddite or they get told to keep up with the times. And they are told that most people who have been skeptical of new technologies in the past have simply been guilty of catastrophizing. But ChatGPT is not just a chatbot. It is a large language model that is capable of creating human-like prose from very simple prompts. And it seems that ChatGPT can produce basically any kind of writing that you give it, whether that's writing a computer program or a novel or poetry. And I think that this really matters because previously, when people have been concerned about different technologies rendering human labor obsolete, there has always been a major exception to that. And that has been creative fields. And I'm mostly worried not because of the economic consequences. Creative people will find ways to survive. But I'm actually worried about the future of creativity itself. But in order to talk about the future of creativity itself, I want to take a detour through the philosophy of mind and the philosophy of cognition. So most of us think that cognition happens roughly here, in the head. But about 20 years ago, two philosophers, Andy Clark and David Chalmers, published a paper which challenged that idea. That paper was called The Extended Mind. The basic idea of Clark and Chalmers is that human beings don't just use environmental supports to perform regular physical tasks, but also to perform cognitive tasks. And they argue that if we use these environmental supports to perform cognitive tasks, then these should be given what they call epistemic credit, which means that we should credit them as genuine parts of the cognitive process and, by extension, genuine parts of our mind. When a human being uses an environmental support to perform a cognitive task, they call that creating a coupled system. A really simple example would be using these blocks. This block has a round hole, and this is a rectangle. Now, most of us can determine that this rectangle simply isn't going to fit in the round hole. And we can do that by mentally rotating the shapes in our mind. But another way of using it is to create a coupled system, and it's to physically rotate and then try it out. And we'll see that this block won't fit, but this block will. And that's what children do. So children create coupled systems with blocks and other forms of children's toys in order to actually train themselves to be better cognitive processors. Basically, any environmental support you use as a one-off to perform a coupled task would count as a fleeting coupled system. But there are also stable coupled systems. And these are supports that we use on a regular and ongoing basis to perform the same kinds of cognitive tasks over and over and over. And when you form a stable coupled system, things in your brain change. A previous generation of Americans didn't grow up with calculators, and many of them are capable of performing multiplication and division at a very quick rate purely mentally. But people maybe a little bit older than me, and definitely my generation and a little bit younger, we struggle with that task in general. There are always exceptions. And the reason that we struggle with it is that we grew up using calculators from a very young age. Sometimes my teacher would try to make us learn mental arithmetic or to solve the problems purely in our head. And she would say that you won't have a calculator with you at all times. But she was wrong. Unless you only have an iPad, I guess. Because we have such a stable coupled system with calculators, we have never had to properly train ourselves to do mental math. So it's a little bit different than the example of children using blocks. Children can use blocks to form coupled systems, but they eventually move past using blocks and they go on to just do spatial reasoning mentally. My generation didn't do that with multiplication and division. Here is the general point. When we form a long-term and stable coupled system with a piece of technology, our uncoupled abilities tend to degrade. Sometimes it means that we just never develop the skills on our own, but sometimes it means that we actively got worse at doing things. I think my memory has degraded because I can rely on the internet so much. And I know that my ability to remember phone numbers has basically disappeared. I can remember my childhood phone number, even though I haven't had to call it for at least a decade. But I don't know my wife's phone number, and I call her maybe every other day. And that's because her phone number exists in this phone, which I always have with me. So because I am in a stable coupled system with my phone, I have lost the ability to remember phone numbers. By treating external supports as part of our minds and as part of our cognitive processes, what we are able to do purely on our own does change. And if you are concerned with the idea of human excellence or human development, that already should worry you. Now, this is not going to be an argument for abandoning all technology. For one, if I made that argument, you would call me a hypocrite in the comments section, and there would be some truth to that. But I do think that we generally need to be cautious about how we adopt new technologies into our lives, especially into the parts of our lives that really matter. I'm not really bothered by the fact that I can't remember phone numbers, but I would be bothered if my ability to write creatively were to disappear. And that is the danger of ChatGPT. You see, I started using ChatGPT kind of early on, basically as soon as it went public. And I had a very quick realization. My realization was that I could use ChatGPT to write stuff that I didn't want to write. So I have to write a video description for every video I put on YouTube. It needs to have search-friendly keywords, it needs to be of a certain length, and it needs to always hit on the main themes of a video. And I find these very tedious and kind of difficult to write. So I started using ChatGPT to do it. Now, I don't ever just post those directly. I always edit them. They're always substantially revised. But the first draft that I get from the AI, it's really good. But there's this question that always haunts me. Am I robbing myself of an opportunity to develop a new skill or to maintain a skill that I have worked really hard for? And that is my ability to write well. As we increasingly rely on machines like ChatGPT or all of these image producing AI, are we going to be robbing ourselves of the ability to write well, to write creatively, or to produce art? That's the concern. That's the thing that's keeping me up at night. Now, I think people are probably going to quickly divide into two camps on this issue. I sympathize with one of the camps more, but I understand where both of them are coming from. So the first camp are the pessimists, and they are going to say that this is the worst thing to have ever happened to human creativity. They are going to say that basically AI writing, AI art, AI everything, that is the future. And this is the group that I have a lot of sympathy for. I at least share their worries, if not their confidence. Then you'll have the optimists. They are the other extreme. They think that AI art is maybe the best thing ever. And they could think it for a few reasons. Maybe they think that it's just AI is going to be better at writing than us and better at creating things than us. So why don't we let the AI do it for us? We'll get better stuff out of it. Or they'll insist that no, there will always be a human role in the creative process. And so the pessimists just don't have anything really to worry about. But overall, I think that the results are probably just going to be mixed. There are going to be people who go all in on using these AI tools. And there are going to be people who shun them completely. They'll probably even market their art as purely natural or human generated. They'll use their lack of AI assistance as a selling point. It will probably cost more too, in the same way that buying handmade furniture is more expensive than buying stuff made in a factory. So after some people have gone all in, and after some people have shunned it completely, you're also going to find the big mass of people who use it sometimes and don't think a lot about it. Or use it sometimes feel really bad about it, but continue to use it. And that's probably where I am. And then people are going to get sick of AI art. They're going to start thinking that it's actually really evil, or that it all looks the same or generic, and there's going to be a reaction to it. Maybe we'll start prizing a physical medium more, or maybe we'll want to see those imperfections that are characteristic of human writing. And then a visionary could arise who could show us the proper place of AI art, and we'll suddenly want to follow him or her, and we'll have a new wave of art, and the cycle will continue, and then new technologies will be developed, and the AI will get better, and we'll do it all over again, and maybe I'll make another video in a couple of years, and I'll be older, but the debate will basically be the same. We are going to find out if ChatGPT spells the end for human creativity. I worry it will have negative consequences, but it's really hard to settle these things from the armchair. It's typically a matter of letting it play out in history and seeing who was right and who was wrong. That's not going to stop us from arguing though, and so I had to make this video. And I was struggling to think about how I could end a video like this. After all, this is an unsatisfying resolution. I have asked a question, and then I have answered it by saying, I don't know. So I decided I would ask ChatGPT a question. And I asked if ChatGPT thought it and related technologies would render human creativity obsolete. And this is what it wrote. It is important to recognize that while ChatGPT and other language models have shown impressive abilities in generating text, they are not capable of replacing human creativity. Creativity involves the ability to think outside the box, to come up with novel ideas and approaches, and to connect seemingly unrelated concepts in meaningful ways. These are skills that cannot be replicated by a machine. While language models may be able to assist with tasks such as generating content or completing a script, they are not a replacement for the unique perspective and ingenuity that humans bring to the table. It is important to continue to nurture and value human creativity in all fields, as it will always be a crucial component of innovation and progress. I don't know if ChatGPT is right about itself. That feels like a really cautious answer, as if it's assuring us that don't worry, there will always be a role for humanity when it comes to the creative arts. But the thing about ChatGPT is there's no guarantee that everything it says is true. In fact, we know it can make a lot of mistakes if you push it in just the right way. So maybe ChatGPT doesn't understand, in some thin, loose, weird sense of understand, the impact that it's about to have on the world. And I guess we probably don't understand it either. And I guess eventually, together, we're going to find out.